So HDR lighting stands for high dynamic range images, which HDR images are generally taken in a special format where they contain more values of brightness and darkness and more color data so that they capture more information than really we can truly see and appreciate even on a computer monitor. But these special types of images are great for lighting 3D scenes because they work like the real world does. If you go outside and the sun is out, you're not just getting light on one side of you from the sun, but because it's 93 million miles away, the photons coming from the sun also hit the atmosphere on the horizon. So you really have light rays hitting you from all directions. They're different colors or different strengths. You can get harsh lighting from the sun, or if there's clouds diffusing the light rays, you'll get diffuse lighting. Those are all different types of qualities of light that are hitting you and or any object that you would like to render if it were outside in a real world. Even inside, there's all kinds of different directions of lighting. And with HDR lighting, because it is essentially a 360 panorama, if you have any reflective objects, they're going to be showing reflections like they would in the real world, because there is stuff all around a scene, and all that stuff should be in the reflections of your objects. So HDR lighting is a win-win, better lighting and better reflections. So here I have a scene with a sunlight. Here on my lighting tab, I have it set to sun. The default stuff is all in here. If I wanted to make it a harsher lighting, I'm going to do a smaller angle. If I want it to be softer lighting, I can go up higher with my angle. As you get close to 90 and even 180, it's just a very diffuse lighting, kind of like a cloudy day. But I don't want to try to fake lighting because this is not great. So I'm going to delete my light object, cast my scene into darkness, and I'm going to split my viewport into a shader editor so that I can show you how to do HDR lighting. It's really simple. And then I'm going to show you some further tricks to really get the most out of it. So I'm going to open my shader editor, and instead of being in object mode, I'm going to go to world. I'm going to press the home button on my keyboard, and here's my world output. Shift A, I'm going to add a background shader, plug it into surface. This is probably what you already had by default, by the way. And then I'm going to press Shift A and type in ENV, environment texture. Here we go. Plug it into the color of the background. Now everything is pink. This simply means that there either is no image texture or the image texture that it's trying to find is missing. A lot of times when you download assets or 3D scans or other people's projects, if your images are not in the same location as theirs, then you're going to get pink something. So I need to open an image texture. I'm going to click open. I have a folder just for HDR images. These are in 2:1 aspect ratio, which is basically a 2:1 rectangle. And it looks kind of funky and weird because it is a 360 panorama. I'm going to find one with grassy ground because that's what my 3D scene has. This one should be fine. Open image, and voila. Now that outside image is currently lighting up my scene. And if I change my view, I can see it. I'm in rendered view, by the way. If I go to material view, it disappears unless I turn on scene world here. But I'm going to go back to live rendered view because this is what gives me ray tracing and shadows and all that juicy stuff I love, because I am using cycles, by the way. So if I look up in the sky, I'm going to try to find where the sun is. The sun is, it's brighter over here. So the sun is behind those clouds. So this is going to be a diffused lighting scene. There are some shadows, but they're not super dark because there's light from the opposite direction filling in these shadow areas. So the shadows are not just pure black like they would have been if I only had one light in my scene. Because even though the sun is over there hiding behind those clouds, there's also clouds over here which are bouncing light and through the atmosphere sending light down that it collected from space. Let's try a different HDR that has a more obvious sun. Open. This one right here, this Rocky Mountain scene. The sun is blaring. Let's see how it changes. Oh, look at that. It's brighter, which can be changed, but the shadows are much stronger. Why? Well, first of all, because the sun, which I'm going to get, there we go. If I look up in the sky, there it is. It's shining down. It's not diffuse. There's no clouds or anything in the way. And over here is also clear skies, which means there's no clouds to diffuse or bounce light back down. Now, I think the atmosphere does still reflect light, but it's not as strong as a cloud layer would be. Cool. Now what about reflections? Let's zoom into this box here. There are some shiny locks and handles right here. And if I let it render for a second, I can see it's actually reflecting the scene. We got blue sky, terrain, the sun. If I disconnect this image texture from the roughness and turn roughness down to 0, now we get a full full-on reflection of the environment around. Now because it's kind of low poly, it's a little bit jagged. Let me do a little bevel subdivision trick here. Make it a little bit smoother. There we go. Nice and round. We can see the world reflecting around it. Now I'm going to put this roughness texture back in there. There we go. Because very few things in the real world are completely reflective, right? Cool, so that is it for the basic HDR setup. Again, in your shader editor, go to your world setting and use an environment texture node. Now to further control this, we can turn up or down the strength. So if you're using an HDR that's not very bright, you can brighten it up, which looks like a bomb just went off, or we can darken it down to 0.1, which is 1/10 the strength, nice and dim like evening or nighttime lighting. Let's put this back to normal strength. Let's say you really need your sun to be coming from the opposite direction over here on the left. Well, let's use a transform node to spin this whole HDR around. Click on the HDR texture node, press Ctrl T, which uses the Node Wrangler add-on to add these nodes automatically. And all you got to do is turn your Z rotation, which will rotate your HDR lighting. If I go to material mode, you can see a little bit better in real time what's happening here. All right, so I'm in material preview mode. I'm turning my rotation. I'm not turning my camera. I'm not turning my scene. I'm literally rotating the background image around this, which is really confusing to my brain right now. But because I'm smart, I know what's happening. So let's go back to live rendered view. Let's rotate it. Let's go to 180. So it's the exact opposite of what it was earlier. 180, there we go. Shadows are on the other side now. Now, normally in your final renders, you don't want this to actually be visible. You don't want a real world image to be in your background. Well, usually you don't. So to hide that and to prevent it from showing up in your final renders, go to your world settings tab, go to ray visibility and turn off camera. And now when I render this, the background is black, which is perfectly what I wanted. You can find HDRs online for free from websites such as polyhaven.com and a bunch of other sources online. One tip is to look for CC0 HDR images, and you'll find images that are easy to use and free. Well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications for my channel. I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you and have a great week.